I love the three-way drafting, and it's quite a simple thing.
The three-way drafting was one of the main reasons. It's a dear piece of kit, but
that's, I suppose, a lot of people's dream. This is Sheepscale. In today's video, we're visiting a farmer in the Midlands of Ireland. He's running a flock of 120 purebred ewes. We're going to have a look at his system, his sheep, his handling facility, and his sheds where he houses his sheep for the winter. Let's have a look. We're with a sheep man in a beautiful part of the world in Killeigh in County Offaly. This is Alan McDonald. He's a sheep farmer with 120 ewes, which is probably the average flock size for, I think, about 70% of the farmers in the country. Yeah, it's about the average size, so it's a decent sized flock. Working full time.
Full time job, yeah.
Alan's running a purebred flock of sheep, which is quite a large number of purebred sheep. So I'll let Alan maybe tell us a bit more about the type of sheep he's running and maybe his system.
Yeah, so running 120 or 125 purebred Lleyn ewes, so they might be purebred, but management wise very easy, same as a commercial or maybe even easier. Lambing end of February, just find the time of year suits. Because of a full-time job, the ewes are all sponged. 1 week's holidays, so try and compact it as much as possible. Like, very good conception rate with the Lleyns, probably up over, well over 90%. So
that's on sponging now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no PMSG used now, just sponge for synchronising.
Yeah.
They're prolific anyway, so no need for, which means it's not over expensive either to sponge them.
Yeah.
So 1 week, one big hit, most of the lambing out of the way. You'll have a break then for a week and a few repeats after that, and job done. You're
running a flock of purebred ewes. How are you managing your sponging with, you obviously need a lot of purebred rams to manage that?
That's probably the one downside is, your ram power, you do need a bit more. There's like Lleyn rams would probably, one good fit ram would probably have a go tipping them all, like where I last year would have run 6 rams. So I'll divide the 120 more or less into 3 lots of 40, and I'll do a batch every second day just to give the rams a chance. So you have 40 sheep going to 6 rams, say on Monday, Wednesday, Friday sort of thing. That's the way I work it.
So you get 90% of your ewes lambed in 1 week?
1 week, yeah.
And you'll have your repeats then in the 17 or 18 days later?
Yeah. So
yeah, it's a good system for a man that's working full time.
It is. Look, it takes a bit more labour in putting them in lamb, if you know what I mean. You have a bit of a week's work there as well, but you can do that in the evenings or whatnot, you got to work around it. But yeah, it is. It's working very well for me now, in fairness.
Alan's running the same type of sheep. I have their Lleyn sheep. So maybe tell us, Alan, why you picked the Lleyn and what you like about them.
Well, first off, I was working with a neighbour that had a lot of pedigree sheep, and years ago we used to have pedigree cattle here ourselves. I always enjoyed the breeding side of animals, and was kind of looking for a breed, something like that, but I don't like the pampering, the looking after the meal and the mollycoddling. So
the typical maybe stuff you'd be doing with pedigree,
with proper purebred pedigree sheep. Like, so like the Lleyns are very, very robust, very healthy, very easy managed sheep. Like so,
low input system.
Low input, and still you have the whole aspect of the breeding side of it and that side of it. So that's what drew me to them first off, and I said it's kind of fell in love with them after that, and I don't think I could work without them at this stage.
You've grown to love them, and it's very hard to move away from them. I see you have you've diversified a little bit, but I believe you got married recently. Maybe herself has some say in the house. Yeah, indeed. There's a few Jacobs knocking around now. There was a push on to get a few pygmy goats. All right. So I said that maybe Jacob was one step left, but still something to be able to sell. So a few Jacobs knocking around for colour. Any temptation now to run a Jacob ram with a good Lleyn ewes?
No, probably not at the minute now. Anyway, we'll keep going down the pure route.
So you're very sure that you've rung all your ram lambs in Jacobs.
Exactly.
I see you have quite a nice Pratley race system. Obviously I don't see the clock on it, but I see space for your
I have the
digital clock. You're obviously performance recording maybe?
Yes, everything's recorded under Sheep Ireland, so I have the clock there, the EasyWay 7 and the reader for taking 40-day weights, 80-day weights.
And have you moved to that recently, or were you doing everything paper-wise?
Paper-wise up to that, it was a manual scales, like throwing them into it, writing it down, regurgitating it. Making mistakes. No matter how good you have. Yeah, a few tag numbers wrote down wrong the whole time. And
I know the story. And I suppose there's no way you could go back to paper now.
No, no. In fairness, now the speed with the reader and everything, it's great. It's easier on the back.
Yeah, it's great to gather that data and fast.
Well, you end up you gather more data. You take more weights when it's easy. You know what I mean?
And are you finding much benefit in performance recording?
I am, especially with the clock there, throwing up your weight gain. You're way more clued in on what your lambs are doing. Like where before you'd say, they look like they're doing well. Yeah. Where now you know.
You're running a system where you're lambing down purebred ewes, and as I suppose different to your normal sheep farm in the country where they're usually selling all their lambs.
Yeah.
Before the back end of every year, whatever way they do it, factory or stores or whatever, you're actually keeping ewe lambs on for breeders, is that right?
Yeah, keeping the majority of ewe lambs, culling just what hasn't performed or underperforming. So not that many, you wouldn't have that much of a percentage wise either. Like, so I generally keep somewhere between 80 and 100 ewe lambs. Yeah. Run them over the winter and sell them the following year as breeding hoggets.
Breeding hoggets.
It's kind of handy stock to run too when you're working, if you know what I mean. Like I could carry more ewes, but that brings with itself. Yeah, look, I suppose it's a very similar system to my own where, well, there's probably a different reason why I'm doing it. Fragmented ground, and it doesn't always suit to run batches of sheep and lambs off the ground that's maybe 10 or 12 miles away from the house. So I'm keeping my ewe lambs as well, and it's probably, look, you'll not make a fortune at them, but it is an easier managed system, like a couple of fluke doses in the winter. And very easy stock to run over the winter and the following summer. Like, and I said, lucky enough that the Clins have been getting a premium price the last few years. And are you finding much interest in the breed? People contacting you looking for sheep, or? Yeah, no, there is a lot of interest in the breed. Just probably its biggest downside is people are a little reluctant with them thinking they're purebred. Yeah. Yeah, you know, thinking that they're pedigree, they're not a commercial sheep. Like, we're the flip opposite. That's what they are. Yeah, you know, like, other than the top 10% of the breed should be going back for pure breeding. The rest are commercial man sheep, as the saying going. So the little stigma of maybe being a purebred sheep sometimes doesn't help. A lot of your commercial type farmer, I find, has a fear of that word, which is rightly so. Probably your normal pedigree purebred type sheep is maybe that little bit softer. Yeah. No, like I'd have customers asking me, are they registered? And you say, yeah, like, well, they're all registered, but it nearly turns them off. They think, oh, well, they're out of my league. Where not the case, like. Yeah, it's funny, I suppose, the sale in Roscommon, for that maybe particular reason, it's very hard to get commercial men to go to the sales because they think they're going to be priced out of the market. Yeah, they think they're not the sheep for them. Yeah, when there can be really good value in them sales. Yeah. And you're producing, we had a look at your hogget rams, you're producing hogget rams as well. Yeah. For breeders and probably commercial men. Yeah. Good interest the last years in commercial rams. You know, people are getting a bit more conscious of breeding their own replacements maybe, or maybe got burned buying replacements that didn't perform for them. And well, that's probably the downside to sheep farming, is if you're not in a position to be breeding your own replacements, you're buying sheep that you don't know what they are, what they're going to do for you, and maybe by picking your own replacements that you want to keep, it's a good way of doing it, but probably running one of your rams. Yes. I suppose you have two benefits in that. You have the easy lambing, which I find about them is a major benefit. Easy lambing, and then the majority of females can be kept for breeding then. Yeah, generally the majority. Like, there would be very low percentages of cull rate. Like. Yeah, it's maybe a good time to touch on possibly a wee negative with them, and I suppose, like any maternal breed, you have that maybe slower to finish. Yeah, you do. Like, some of the rams can be that bit slower, but you have probably an extra few lambs on the ground anyway too. That's covered. Like, you know, I do sow a bit of Redstart usually, incorporated with a reseed maybe, you know, just to push them on that last bit. Like, but like, still, there's no trouble getting them into weight. It's just that little bit slower than your terminal sire. But then a lot of people buying the Killeigh and putting a terminal sire on it, you'll pull that back a couple of weeks too. Yeah, well, funny, that's kind of originally what I had bought Killeigh for. When I got into them, I wanted a prolific ewe that was kind of easy managed, low inputs, that was ideal to run with a terminal sire. And I had such a job to buy what I wanted. I said, there's a bit of a market here for females. So that's kind of how I got into them. Well, I'd be the same. Like I said, if the demand for the females isn't there at some stage, that's probably where I will divert back to crossing crossing someone with terminal sires.
Yeah, I'd be the same thinking myself.
It's just at the minute, you know, the demand is there. It's a extra value for your female. Like,
yeah. But look, I suppose it's one of them situations with work-life balance, people commuting to work. There's not many farmers in the country that are full-time sheep farmers.
No,
very few. That one maybe we done with Frank Fagan. He's probably an exception to the rule. But then he's running 1,000 head. You know, there's not many farmers up to that type of scale. So I suppose in order to have a bit of a life and be a sheep farmer and work full-time, you kind of need some of these easier managed breeds with less work, basically.
Yeah, you know, like as I said, health-wise with Leyns or clean sheep, you're not much trouble with maggots, lameness very little, you know, so you're not doing them mundane tasks that is work, like you're not dagging or turning up to do feet, like very seldom. I'd even turn up a little bit of run through the footbath every now and then to keep them right. And
I see you have a footbath here that I suppose you let them out through that every time you have them in the yard.
It depends. Sometimes if I've no lameness at all or the footbath's not set up, you know, ready for off, they'll skip it. Like, but yeah, if it's a time of year when there is a bit of issue, anytime they're in, they'll exit through the footbath.
What are you using in the footbath?
I use formalin, even though it's nasty stuff, but I said it's away from the handling itself. It's an exit, so you're not standing over it. Like literally, you open the gates, the ewes nearly walk out through it themselves. So you're not standing over it. Like it's not nice stuff to work with, but it works just running them through it. Where the others you maybe have to stand them in it for 5 or 10 minutes, which is time consuming. So again, I'd rather run them through the formalin than not do them through the other because you don't have the time to spend or whatever. You know, when you're in a hurry. It's
actually a very good system when we look at it there. I find the downside to mine in the Stanley race, you have the footpath in the race and you're wrestling, you're trying to maybe do a job with the sheep while they're wrestling the footpath, you're getting splashed. You know, at the minute, the last footpath I used was paracetic acid and acetic acid, and it's just not nice stuff to be getting on your skin.
No, and like
so that's a good system where you're.
Yeah, and I find I used to work with the footpath in the race too, like, and it's hard to get your sheep to flow through it. You know, you're pushing, you're
no flow. No, it's a wrestler batch.
Yeah, like I couldn't believe the difference when I bought the batch footpath, like of the difference of the sheep flowing through the race. Like, not if you paid me would I go back.
Well, funny that's the next thing I'll be setting up now is a system like that because. I generally didn't do much footbathing up till this year. I had a bit of a problem with scald and getting the lambs through the race. Nightmare, absolute nightmare. So I'll be looking for maybe a simple system like yours. I see in your shed here you have, we'll see some of the lambing pens set up here. You have a nice drink system set up with pipes with the slots cut out. Yeah. Saves a bit of time with lambing.
Huge time. Yeah, there's I'd have probably about 30 or 35 pens with water. Yeah. So that's 35 buckets of water you don't have to carry. Yeah.
It's a nightmare at lambing, this carrying wall.
You know, it's unforgiving, monotonous work. It's not enjoyable.
That's right. Yeah. It takes the joy out of lambing. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, you're obviously going to be busy enough at lambing if you're getting most of your sheep or 90% of them covered within a week. Yeah. Lambing is obviously busy.
Lambing is busy, like, but it's fun. Like probably the lambing aspect of it is nearly the easiest with the Lleyns. Like they're Sheep Ireland recorded, so that probably takes the most time. Is your bit of info for that, and then your feeding and your bedding and whatnot. But like with the Lleyns, the lambing is a straightforward bit. You kind of gather them up.
It's funny. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. You have a really easy lambing sheep that I think 75% of mine lambed unassisted this year now. And then you're coming along and you're doing this monumental amount of work. And especially if you're doing that paper-wise, you know, without your reader, without your EID reader, like that, it probably quadruples the workload.
It is, like that is what takes the time with me. Like,
but then I find if you're not actually doing that performance recording, you're farming blind. You don't actually know where you're going.
No, you don't. Like, it's amazing what flags up and like, it's amazing you get to know your sheep. Like, you know, the problem ones will
they'll soon crop up on your data.
And the problem lines even, like, you know, your breeding lines even.
But it's funny, I've noticed probably in the last couple of years when I started using a software system is the actual stock rams.
Yes.
And you're looking at your weights and all your lambs are coming up in weights, but then maybe one stock ram might flag up where he's running much lighter. At weaning weight. Yeah. And you know, that's obviously down to your ram too, like. So it will flag up problems like that. So your
I
see slats, cattle slats in the shed. You're obviously farming cattle as well.
Yeah, cattle as well. Although there is some of the slats now to be bedded every year for ewes that have more slats than they do cattle now. We used to have a lot more cattle years ago. But from 15 or 16 suckler cows there the last few years, and finishing all the stock off the farm. So finished the heifers around 30 months, and the bulls are finished as bulls under 24 months.
Yeah. So. And well, when I started farming 8 years ago, I suppose I was concerned with, say, my infrastructure wasn't great at home. I hadn't much in the line of sheds, so that's probably why I picked to go into sheep.
Yeah.
You know, the fencing was probably the biggest cost I had to get going. But you probably have a good bit of the infrastructure there. If you were to make a comparison, we'll say, from sheep to cattle, like how do they compare, you know, on the bottom line, we'll say?
I'd much prefer the sheep now at the minute, and especially the Clyns. I said they're a little niche market there, they're doing well. The cattle, just the expenses, like, and then the lottery of knowing what you're going to get.
Like, at the factory price.
Yeah, at the end, not even at the end of the day, at the end, 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
You know, it's glorified gambling.
Yeah, it's a pure gamble, but that's the nature of farming, I think. Yeah. Farming is a gamble, like.
You know, and then the workload, I'd find it easier lambing the ewes than calving the cows, even though I'd very little trouble too, like, but just...
Yeah.
Everything is bigger with the cattle, if you know what I mean. Like,
and you mentioned then you're probably cutting, you've kept less cattle.
Yeah.
And you have some of the concrete slats that you're actually bedding.
Yeah.
Would you ever be tempted to lift off concrete slats and put on plastic slats and house the sheep on them?
Yeah, I probably would. I kind of hummed and hawed about it now. The ewes wouldn't be housed for terrible long, probably Christmas to lambing the end of February, like, depending on the year, depending on the grass.
Yeah. And are you getting them off farm for...
Sometimes get some of the ewe lambs off farm, yeah.
But your actual sheep, your ewes...
Ewes are always on farm. Yeah.
So you'll close off your grass Christmas until February?
Even earlier, I'd be... The first of the paddocks will be closed probably beginning to mid-October. I always try and ensure I have grass for lamb. The ewes go out here, there's no meal. I just can't listen to the hardship of the ewes roaring at you and following you, and there's no meal no matter how bad the weather is.
Yeah,
once
it gets into a mess, I find.
Once they go out the gate here, they're on their own. Like so, I always try and make sure I've good grass.
Yeah. So I suppose closing off in October, it's a nice spell from October up till February. How long are you actually housing for when you lamb? Like, are you letting out fairly soon, or how do you work that?
Weather dependent, like 2 to 3 days.
Yeah. That's probably the only downside I see to this performance recording thing is actually the tagging. You're tagging little small lambs. Yeah. And I'd actually, in a lot of cases, I'd fire my lambs out when they're still wet. No problem, like when the weather's good.
Yeah.
And I find they're a hardier little lamb.
Yeah.
Let them dry off in the field, but then you can't really be tagging them when they're wet.
No, that's the thing. You have to gather them back up for that side of it.
Yeah, a couple of days you were getting away with out to the... You were lucky enough, you lambed down when the weather was still reasonable and they're probably hardened up. This spring was tricky, as most of you know. It was very tricky. Yeah,
no, in fairness, they got a good start. They got a good week or two to get going, and then now they had a fairly miserable spell after that. But look at when they have a bit of age to them.
Yeah.
They take it a lot more, and if you can keep the grass under the ewes, like once a lamb has a full belly, we never give them credit for what weather they can tolerate.
It's amazing how hardy they are. I seen sheep and young lambs out a week or 10 days old, and the weather was shocking. But as you say, once the lamb has a belly full of milk, like, you'll soon spot your problem. Usually you'll find them dead, like, because they can't handle a night of tough weather. When the belly's full of milk, they're flying, like.
Yeah.
I suppose, like a lot of sheep farmers, you're not a big spender on machinery no more than myself.
No, I wouldn't have a love for machinery. I'd go for a wheelbarrow and a 4-grain fork before a loader, if possible. No, not. Not the quad bike now. That's about the only bit of machinery that'd be invaluable around here.
I don't see a dog about.
No. Again, working full time, it's hard to keep a dog active. You need to be working a dog, so that's probably why the quad bike. No, I don't use it that much either. Like, it's a try and try to paddock assist in the ewes a certain amount to get used to coming to you and moving.
Funny, I see that when we moved the sheep there, a rattle at the gate, my own, and you've no problem getting them to come.
No. So
I suppose your yard is quite centralised here in the farm.
Well, all in one block again too, so you know, it's handy that way too.
So your handling system here is fairly new. You're only after putting that really in.
Yeah, just last spring there. used to just work out the far side of the wall there, just kind of one long narrow pen with the race in the middle.
Yeah.
Just poured a slab out here now and trying to work a kind of a loop system now with the 2 pens.
Yeah, okay. And you're fit to get your whole mob of sheep in?
Oh yeah, plenty of room there now because you can keep circulating them around.
Yeah. And how do you find your Pratley handling system there? I love the 3-way drafting, and it's quite a simple thing. The
3-way drafting was one of the main reasons, again, that I went for the Pratley. Because a lot of sorting, when you're sorting even hoggets for sales and ewe lambs and breed, a lot of sorting on sheep the whole year round, dividing batch in numerous ways.
Yeah, even getting ewes ready for rams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I found the old way. You were running sheep through 2 or 3 or 4 times.
That's a problem I have at the minute. Yeah.
To get a split off, so that was one of the main reasons why I went for the Pratley, and then even just the quietness of it and ease of use of it then after that as well. It's a dear piece of kit, but it's
lifetime job.
Yeah.
Especially when you're using it for performance recording.
Yeah.
I see what a lot of us are probably guilty of is hurdles and bits of string. I see you have lovely gates that are hung inside the frame and they're all hinged with a latch.
Yeah.
That's, I suppose, a lot of people's dream. It's amazing the way it can improve things, a decent handling system.
Oh, I do look back and wonder how I ever worked or sorted sheep, or no wonder you were spending all hours
Well, Robbie, you might have seen Robbie, my father-in-law, in the videos. We often talk about when I started, those pallets and old gates with holes in it that lambs used to jump out of, and it's just hard job.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with part-time farming too. You get very sick of them things very quickly. When you're doing it in the evenings after a day's work, you say, hold on now, enough's enough.
Something needs to improve here. I think it's fair to say Alan is running an exceptionally good show here, and I'll just give you a look at some of the sheep here. Clean, tidy, nice flock, and so much so he's actually willing to put them all on show. He's hosting an open day for the Lleyn sheep, 17th of July? 15th of July. Saturday the 15th of July.
Yeah.
At 12:30?
12:30, yeah.
12:30, right. So everybody's welcome to that. We should have some speakers there.
A few talkers on veterinary products and a few different trade stands and whatnot.
I'm hopeful now, I haven't it pinned down yet, but I'm hopeful Nick and Jack might send up the Cotter Crate and we might have it on live demonstration if you want to come and have a look at it working. We've another man coming to do a dog demonstration, really well trained dog, so he's going to give us a look at that working as well. So if you fancy, come along, have a look at Lleyn sheep and a few extra activities here on the day. I'll post the details in the description, the address and the postcode or Eircode for you to have a look at. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I will see you in July.